Where to live in Colorado Springs, a very difficult question to ask if you don't know the greater Colorado Springs area. So in today's video, we're gonna go through a ton of different areas across Colorado Springs. We're gonna hit the Broadmoor area. We're gonna talk about the downtown area. So definitely watch the whole video if you have some interest in Colorado Springs, maybe thinking about a move here. And this is actually part 2. So watch this one, but then if you don't see an area that you really like in this video, go check out part 1 because we covered probably about 9 different areas in that video as well. Now, I've been in Colorado Springs for 20 years now, so I feel like while not a native, I have a pretty good understanding of Colorado Springs and El Paso County as a whole. So the information we're gonna present, hopefully it's gonna be beneficial for you, but know that it's coming from somebody that's been here for quite a while, like I said, 20 years, and I've lived everywhere from the west side of town, east side of town, all the way out in Falcon, and now up in Black Forest. So I've lived all over Colorado Springs. I've seen this city grow more than I ever thought it would. So hopefully this one helps you out. All right, the first area we're gonna talk about is Manitou Springs. Now, Manitou Springs is on the west side of Colorado Springs, and there's actually a little archway right on Colorado Avenue where officially Manitou Springs starts. Now, I largely consider Manitou Springs where Colorado Avenue crosses underneath Highway 24, kind of right at that interchange. There's a park there on the corner. That's where I kind of think of Manitou Springs starting. Now, the reason we know it doesn't officially start there is if you go back just a little bit on Colorado Avenue, back east just a little bit, there's a couple marijuana shops there, and recreational marijuana is legal in Manitou Springs. So those shops are kind of set up right on the border of Manitou and technically Colorado Springs. So Colorado Avenue transitions into Manitou Avenue, and it really just parallels Highway 24, and it kind of goes up this little valley, and Manitou Springs is just tucked back in there. So Manitou Springs, the area is really from Highway 24 and Colorado Avenue on the east, and then to where Manitou Avenue comes up and meets with Highway 24 on the west side. And then north and south, the boundaries are a little fuzzy. There's not like any definitive landmark, but I think it's largely, just south of where the town proper of Manitou Springs is. And then also there's a little section, it's actually a pretty big section called Crystal Hills and Crystal Park that are also, considered to be in Manitou Springs. So that's the geographic area of it. And then when we talk about neighborhoods that you'll see in Manitou Springs, it's really kind of the ones that I just mentioned. It's really Manitou proper. And then you have Crystal Hills, which is kind of a down lower area as you drive through to get to Crystal Park. And Crystal Park it's a unique neighborhood. Almost all the houses, they're literally built on the side of the mountain. It's a gated community. There's a gatehouse down at the bottom, and it is the twistiest of all twisty roads to get up in there. And you could be 40 minutes from the top of Crystal Park if you had a house way at the top, just to get back down to the gatehouse at the bottom. So to get back into Manitou Springs. So that's a pretty cool area. We've sold a couple houses up there. You definitely have to want to have that environment that you live in. So there's not a ton of demand for it compared to other parts of town. Manitou Springs, a lot of it was built at the turn of the century. So late 1800s, early 1900s. There are definitely newer homes mixed in there. And that Crystal Hills area is a lot of what I would say probably like 80s built houses in there, 70s, 80s maybe. But most of Manitou was built out pre-1950. So it's going to be a lot of older homes that you see in there. The school district for Manitou is its own school district. It's Manitou School District 14. It covers Manitou Springs proper, and it also goes up Ute Pass a little bit, like we kind of talked about on the last video. All right, so recreation, that's something we're trying to hit on all the areas because people are usually moving to Colorado for the lifestyle, the recreational lifestyle that Colorado offers. So in Manitou Springs, there's really, I would say, there's a handful of things, and we're going to talk about them, but just the general thing is like most areas on the west side of Colorado Springs, it's the outdoor recreation. So the biggest one, when I think of Manitou Springs recreation, I'm thinking about the incline. There's a ton of videos out there about the incline. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely check some of those out. We've done a couple of team videos on the incline as well. So the incline used to be part of the old Cog Railway. So there's a railroad, the Cog Railroad, that goes to the top of Pikes Peak. This is an older section of an old Cog Railway. So it's essentially railroad ties just stacked into the side of the hill. And it's about a mile long, and you gain about 3,000 feet in elevation on the way up. So it's a crazy good workout. Not for everybody, but I would say if you take it slow, most people can make it up it. So the incline is a huge draw for Manitou. So recreation-wise, that's one of the biggest things for sure. There's also a lot of trails that you can get on outside of Manitou if you want to go do some trail running. The other thing with Manitou that I think is not totally unique, but one of the most different things, I guess, about it compared to the rest of Colorado Springs is how touristy it is. Now, that can be positive or negative, I guess, but the downtown Manitou area, that strip along Manitou Avenue, man, there are all kinds of shops. And if in the summertime, it is packed with tourists because it's also right at the base of Pikes Peak. So when you're in Manitou, you look up and you're staring at the top of Pikes Peak. You're literally, like I said, right at the base of it. So on the recreation side of things, it's outdoor recreation right at the base of Pikes Peak. You got the incline, a ton of trails. And then also, if you don't want to do that kind of stuff, there are a ton of shops to go shop at, restaurants, stuff like that, right along Manitou Avenue. And then if you just kind of want a place that just has a lot of energy and kind of a vibrant culture around it, especially in the summertime when there's a lot of people there, definitely like that Manitou Avenue is the place to be. So when we talk about local businesses for this area, in my mind, I really kind of think just about everything in Manitou is a local business. There's not chain stuff really in Manitou. So any of the shops, any of the restaurants are probably going to be locally owned and operated businesses. I got to give a shout out to one specifically. Like I said, there's a ton of good places over there, so definitely check them out. But if you're looking for Mexican, especially for a really good margarita, check out the Loop, which is at the end. I'll show you on the map here, actually. This is worth looking at the map for this one. So Ruxton Avenue and Manitou, right here, there's a roundabout, and you kind of feel like you've already went through most of the shops going through Manitou on this stretch right here. And you get to this roundabout, and you kind of feel like you're about to leave town, and there's not really a whole lot of commercial stuff past this, a little bit, but not too much. But right here, the Loop, this is a Mexican restaurant. I've been going there for, I don't know, at least 15, probably close to 20 years now. And I personally think best margaritas in Colorado Springs. So the Loop, check that out. All right, now let's go over a few housing stats. Just, hey, you got to know what the prices are like if you're going to live somewhere. So in Manitou, the maximum price, and this is for properties of the last 6 months. So in the last 6 months, max price of a property is $1.2 million. That was up in Crystal Park, that gated community that I mentioned. Definitely at a higher price point up there. Some of the homes are, you might be able to find a home up there for under 7 figures right now, but most of them are going to be just a little bit over 7 figures. So that was the most expensive sale. The least expensive was $275,000. So a pretty good price, but this house was 500 square feet on a little tiny lot in Manitou and built at the turn of the century, the last century. So an older home, really, really small, and still was $275,000. And then let's see, the price per square foot, $316 a foot. Now this is definitely one of the biggest price per square foot numbers that you're going to see for an overall area in the Colorado Springs market. And it's really just because a lot of the homes are smaller. You weren't building a lot of 5,000 square foot houses back in the late 1800s. So the homes are a little bit smaller overall compared to the other parts of town, and there is still a big demand for it. So prices still kind of stay a little high. So $316 a square foot was is the average price per square foot in that area. And I kind of mentioned a little bit already, but as we talk about the different types of homes, the thing that you think of when you think of Manitou Springs is really just older, late 1800s, early 1900s homes. Again, that's just when the area was built out. So most everything was going to be built before 1950. Of course, there's certainly going to be some caveats to that. The Crystal Park area that I mentioned, those homes are going to be newer, 90s or newer built. And then Crystal Hills as well, a little bit newer homes down there in comparison to the rest of Manitou. But when you get into the heart of Manitou and up on the hills, kind of just to the north and south of Manitou, it's definitely going to be a lot older homes. That's just, like I said, it's just when the area was built out. So what makes Manitou Springs special? I think there's probably a couple things. And one is, it's kind of a hard thing to describe, but it's really just this, Manitou has this unique quirkiness to it. It's just Manitou Springs, and everybody that's local here just knows Manitou Springs is a little bit different. The folks that live in Manitou sometimes can be a little bit quirky as well. Sometimes people just want to be really close to the mountains, but still close to all the amenities. So it just has a very unique vibe to it, especially, like I said, in that tourist season when you have kind of quirky native Manitou folks out roaming around. You have all the tourists from, wherever the Midwest out there as well. It just has a pretty cool vibe to it. So I think the quirkiness of it, it's also, like I said, a big tourist hotspot for Colorado Springs. I would say it's the largest area or just the highest concentration of tourists that you'll see. And again, it's because it's right at the base of Pikes Peak. So anybody that is going up, that's going to make the drive up to Pikes Peak Highway to go up to the top of the peak, or if they're going to take the Cog Railway, they're going to go right through Manitou. And most people stop, do some walking around, grab lunch, whatever it might be. So it's just a touristy area for Colorado Springs. And then the other thing, you know, honestly, is the fact that recreational marijuana is legal in Manitou. So you definitely see that around a little bit more than you do in Colorado Springs proper. So it's just a cool, quirky area. I'm a big fan of Manitou. I used to live on the west side of town. I don't anymore. I live up in Black Forest now. But man, it's just a nice place to go walk when it's a nice sunny day out. Just kind of go check out the shop. So definitely Manitou Springs. It's definitely on one of the top of my list. All right, let's talk now about the southwest area of Colorado Springs. This truly is one of my favorite areas in Colorado Springs for a number of reasons that we're going to talk about, of course. So let's first kind of show you on the map where southwest Colorado Springs is, what we consider southwest. And again, this is debatable. This isn't like it's not like there's these exact lines that differentiate these areas, but largely the southwest part of Colorado Springs could be considered I-25 on the east side of it. So this is I-25 right here. And then really all the way down to Fort Carson. So Fort Carson, big military installation on the south side of town. This is Academy Boulevard right here. And then everything south of that in this area right here, this is all Fort Carson. So the southwest part of town is really I-25 and then kind of all this area. Like I said, that's Fort Carson. But then coming across, this road right here is Highway 115. So if you kind of just make a line kind of where this Rock Creek Park is, so just south of Cheyenne Mountain State Park. And if you kind of make a straight line east to west right there, that's about the southern boundary of what most people would consider southwest Colorado Springs. And then it comes up just kind of up the foothills, kind of really where it kind of transitions to the National Forest. So kind of right up through here, and then on the backside of Bear Creek Park, and then back up to this northern boundary, which would be Lower Gold Camp Road. So this is that boundary right here, the northern boundary. So in general, this right here is the area that we're talking about when we say southwest Colorado Springs. Now, when we say neighborhoods in southwest Colorado Springs, there are a lot of neighborhoods that if you spend any amount of time in Colorado Springs, or if you know anybody that's lived here, or even honestly, even if you visited a good bit, a lot of these neighborhoods, they're just really popular. A lot of people recognize the name. So we're going to start up north. So like I said, here's Bear Creek Park. So this area right here is Skyway. So you have what's called Upper Skyway and then Lower Skyway. And as you come on down Cresta, you get to probably what is one of the most popular areas or most well-known areas in Colorado Springs, and it's the Broadmoor. So the Broadmoor is a 5-star resort, very, very nice hotel and grounds associated with it, golf course associated with it as well. And all this area here along Lake Avenue, this is all the Broadmoor. So this whole area is kind of known as the Broadmoor. And as you go up kind of these roads up behind the Broadmoor, there's some beautiful homes up there. And largely this is all considered the Broadmoor as we talk about it. Now, these roads down here, so you can kind of see this gets up in a national forest. So you can kind of see where the roads die out right here. But these neighborhoods down here, some of them are named in some way after the Broadmoor. They have Broadmoor in the name, I guess I should say. So the most popular one down here, probably the biggest one, is Broadmoor Bluffs, which would be this area down here that's close to Cheyenne Mountain. So Broadmoor Bluffs is this area. There's a lot of other kind of little sub-neighborhoods along these roads as you go up kind of past Colorado Country Club or the Country Club of Colorado and the Cheyenne Mountain Resort. So those are the major neighborhoods on this side of 115. So then on the east side of 115, you have Stratmore down here, and then Stratmore Hills and Stratton Meadows. So these neighborhoods right here, they have a little bit different feel to them. The price points are going to be lower. The houses are going to be a little bit smaller. This was a lot of like 50s and 60s built, you know, kind of when like Sears and Roebuck had their catalog and you could order a house out of the catalog and they deliver all the pieces to you, like kind of just real basic rectangle, single level, smaller homes. You see a lot of that in this area. But then also you see a lot of cool areas up around Quail Lake and some of these other areas that are, you know, 80s and 90s built that are kind of split level homes or tri-level. So there's just a wide variation. And then as you get back up, kind of completing the circle, as you get back up to the north side here, you have Ivywild. So Ivywild is, again, if you've looked into Colorado Springs much, you might recognize it from, there's an old school called Ivywild that has been, it's no longer a school, it's closed for years. And a couple businesses took it over and they bought it and they renovated. Now there's cool little shops, there's a brewery, restaurant, stuff like that in it. But that neighborhood around that school is also called Ivywild. So there's a large variation in home or in neighborhood styles from, very, very simplistic small homes up to, as we talk about some numbers, you'll see there's some pretty expensive homes that have been sold around the Broadmoor. Now, if we talk about schools in this area, it's going to get a little bit convoluted, so I'll try to kind of clarify it, but I'm going to give you a couple resources as well. So there's really there are 4 school districts that overlap in this area that we've talked about. Now, when people think of Southwest, they think of the Broadmoor area. One of the biggest draws to the area is District 12 schools. Cheyenne Mountain School District has been one of the best rated school districts, not just in El Paso County, but in the state of Colorado for years and years and years. So a lot of people will specifically buy in the area or try to buy into the area so that their kids can go to those D12 schools. So D12 is, like I mentioned, along the Broadmoor, Cresta, Skyway, all this area up here is going to be D12. And the Broadmoor Bluffs as well. So kind of all this big area here. But then there's other school districts. District 8 is Fountain Fort Carson. So once you get farther south in this area over here, some of this will actually be District 8. And then also over here in the Stratmore area, you might get just a little bit of District 8. But that's actually where it's going to transition to District 3 and District 2. So District 2 is Harrison, which is going to be kind of up in this area. It just kind of comes on the other side of I-25 a little bit. The school district's mostly on the east side of I-25, and that's the same thing with District 2 and District 3, but they do come over a little bit across I-25. So depending on exactly where you're at in the southwest part of town, you may have those other districts that you're part of as well. But the vast majority of what we call the southwest part of Colorado Springs is going to be District 12. And like I said, a lot of people buy there because that district has such good ratings. Check out niche.com, greaterschools.org. You probably heard me say those before. Those are just great resources to do some due diligence on the school districts that are not just in El Paso County, but anywhere in Colorado. So on the recreation side, what do people on the southwest side of town do on a day-to-day basis? You can probably figure this one out. It's outdoor stuff, like a lot of Colorado Springs. I know we keep talking about it, but again, lifestyle, that's why people are usually moving here. On the southwest part of town, there are just a ton of trails and parks that you can go check out. So if we jump on the map here, you'll see there are some long trails. So this is that Skyway area that we mentioned. If you go up to the top of Skyway on Bear Creek Road up here, there's a trail right here. This is section 16 trail. It's a really cool loop, kind of winds through the foothills. This is a great trail. There's also Seven Falls, which the land is owned by the Broadmoor, so I believe it's $20 to go to Seven Falls. But it's only about a mile long hike. It's beautiful. It's very, very scenic. So the Seven Falls hike is super cool as well. And then one of the biggest attractions, probably I would say not just in the southwest town, but all of Colorado Springs, is the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. It's a lot of people might be thinking, oh, it's a zoo. What's a big deal? The zoo's super cool because it's not like a lot of zoos where it's just, concrete houses and it feels like a city that all the animals are in. It is set in the foothills and it's a very, very natural outdoor environment. So the animals, you just kind of feel like they're more, maybe not their natural habitat, but they're not living in a concrete bunker basically. So they're out and about doing their thing. It's super beautiful. It is some up and down walking. So make sure that you're prepared for that if you go to the zoo, but definitely worth it. That's a big recreational thing on the southwest side of town. We mentioned Bear Creek Park earlier. I'm gonna scroll back up to that just so you can kind of see how big it is. So Bear Creek Park is a very large park and you can see all these trails that go through it. So there's a lot of walking and running trails through Bear Creek. There's a really big dog park that's super popular up there as well. There's even an archery shooting range, outdoor range in Bear Creek Park. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty unique for the area. And then if you go south a little bit more, you have Cheyenne Mountain State Park. So this is a huge state park down here. You can see all these trails that kind of wind through it. So outdoor recreation is definitely the name of the game in the southwest part of Colorado Springs. There's not really a lot of shopping or anything like that to do like there's going to be in other areas we're going to talk about. So it's definitely about the outdoor recreation, natural beauty. It's not like you have to be some Olympic trail runner to go enjoy it. You'll see a ton of people out just walking their dogs, having a good time. So yeah, that's definitely the big draw for the southwest part of town, is the outdoor recreation. Now, when I think about local businesses in the southwest part of town, there's not a lot that comes to mind for me personally. Now, I know people that live in the southwest area probably have a ton of local places that they always go check out, but I'm going to give you one for myself. And again, I think I've mentioned this before, a lot of food stuff is usually what I kind of focus on with locally owned. But Edelweiss is a German restaurant that's been there for, honestly don't even know. It's been there at least 20 years because that's how long I've been going there. So Edelweiss is right, and I'm going to show it to you on the map here. It's right in this area of revitalization that I'm going to talk about a little bit too. So Edelweiss German restaurant right here. So this is a great locally owned restaurant, especially if you like German food. And I lived in Germany for multiple years, so I think I kind of know what good German food tastes like. And I like Edelweiss. I think it's pretty solid. So this area right here on South Nevada, this historically in Colorado Springs has not been a very nice part of town. A lot of, just kind of, I don't want to say pay by the hour hotels, motels, but there was definitely some of that over here, and just kind of some rundown pawn shops, and just not a great part of town, which was always interesting because you had all this revitalization taking place in the downtown Colorado Springs area, which we're going to talk a lot about. And then you had this very, very exclusive place called the Broadmoor down here, but in between you had this area that was it just didn't really seem to fit. So the city's made a really big effort to revitalize that area. So there's a new area called Creek Walk that follows along Cheyenne Creek, kind of right through this area. And there's some new shops, some new restaurants. It's mostly chain stuff in that area, but it's, Sprouts and Athleta, I think, has a shop in there. So it's some nicer shops, if you will, but it's a small little area. But they're continuing to revitalize this on both sides of Nevada now. So this area is changing a lot right now, and I think for the better, honestly. Now, as I talked a little bit about the neighborhoods in the general area, you probably got a feel for, man, there's just a big delta of kind of how the high end and the low end is in the area as far as neighborhoods go. And it's like that on the housing side too, as we talk about specific houses. So let me give you some of those same numbers, Ian, to kind of paint the picture. Median home price, $440,000. So that's not too terrible. That's actually lower than the median for Colorado Springs across the board. And a lot of that's driven by some of those smaller homes that we talked about. But if we look at the max price, $4 million. That's a pretty expensive home in Colorado Springs. Depending on where you're coming from, that may not be a lot, but for Colorado Springs, that's a pretty darn expensive home. We don't have a lot of sales at that price point. And that home was a 15,000 square foot estate on the backside of the Broadmoor. So kind of up behind the Broadmoor, that area that we were talking about. It was, I would say, probably right up in this area. So $4 million was the high sale. And then the lowest one was $85,000, which I think that's the lowest price point we've talked about at all in any of these areas. But it's a little unique. It was actually over here in the Stratmore Valley area, and it was $85,000 back to the creek over here, but it was pretty rough. It really was legitimately a scrape, and somebody just bought it for the lot because it did back to the creek. So $85,000 was the low, $4 million was the high, and the average price per square foot was $240. So $240 average price per square foot, a big wide variance in what those price points are like. I will tell you that most of the homes now on the west side of 115 are either in the low seven figures or pushing really close to the seven figures. And then when you get on the other side of 115, that's when you'll see home prices that'll be anywhere from maybe $600,000 all the way down to some condos that are in like the $300,000. So a wide variation. Those homes, there are some homes around the Broadmoor, kind of back in the Cheyenne Canyon there, built in the late 1800s as well. So you have late 1800s all the way up to along that Creek Walk area right now. They have some new duplexes that they're building there. So kind of all the way to basically new construction. I think they finished out the last ones. So you have 1800s to brand new construction, but a vast majority of the homes in this area were built in the 50s and 60s. If you kind of take a broad look at the whole area, most of these homes are built in the 50s and 60s. And then of course, some built throughout those intermediate times as well. So the Broadmoor area, what makes it unique? Honestly, it's kind of just because it's the Broadmoor area, just how Manitou has that quirky feel to it. the Broadmoor has always had this exclusive feel to it. So the southwest part of town has the Broadmoor, Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. You've got all this beautiful scenery. You're right at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Interestingly enough, when you're in the southwest part of town, you actually don't see Pikes Peak nearly as good as you do from farther north areas. But man, you're just right in the foothills, and everything you want to do recreationally, if you like to do outdoor stuff, is right outside your back door. So just the exclusivity of some of those neighborhoods combined with the natural recreation, that's what makes the southwest part of town really special. All right, now we're going to pop over to the southeast portion of the greater Colorado Springs area. And the first area down there I want to talk about is Fountain Valley. Now, this is a pretty broad term. It's a broad area. How you define it, you ask 10 people, you'd probably get 10 different areas. But let's go to the map, and I'll kind of show you how I guess, put the boundaries around the Fountain area. And again, this is an area because there is a little town of Fountain as well that you're going to see on the map, but this is the Fountain Valley area. So for me, I kind of look at it as, let me zoom in a little bit here. This Fontaine Boulevard right here. So Colorado Springs is to the north, obviously, from where we're at here. So Colorado Springs is up here. This is Fontaine Boulevard. And kind of all of this area down through, you can see the little town of Fountain proper. All of this area here is what I consider Fountain Valley. Now, this big area where there's nothing, that is Fort Carson. So there's no, residential stuff or anything like that over here. So if we zoom back in a little bit, we'll kind of start at the north and we'll talk about some neighborhoods a little bit. So again, if this is Fontaine right here, if we say that's the northern edge of Fountain Valley, one thing that we're going to talk about Fountain is that there's a lot of new construction. There's a ton of new development in the area. And it's largely because there's not a lot out there and you can just keep building east as long as you want to. So it's just easy development if they can tie into Colorado Springs. There's some issues with kind of utilities being supplied by Fountain, the city, for future development, kind of what all that looks like. A little bit of a question mark there, but nonetheless, there's a lot of new development. So this right here is Lorson Ranch. This is a larger community. Building out here started in, I would say, mid-2000s, maybe somewhere between 2005, 2010. It's a large group of homes. There's really not anything real special to it. It's a larger subdivision still being built right now. So there's still lots are selling, still building new construction. As you work your way back in some of these areas right here, you'll actually see some older homes. And when I say older, kind of like 1970s along in there, maybe some on both sides of that, 60s and 80s even. But these are some homes that might be on a little bit bigger parcel, maybe an acre, half acre. But these homes were kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There wasn't really much going on back then. And now everything's just starting to fill around them. So here you have Mesa Ridge. This is another new home community. Mesa Ridge kind of goes on both sides of this here. As you go kind of through Fountain, kind of down into the heart where the little town center is, this is Fountain Mesa Parkway. So a lot of these homes right here are 90s built in this area. And then you have some other newer home communities as well, or relatively newer. So this is Cumberland Green. These homes were all built in the 2000s as well. And then you have some new construction kind of down here on the south side as well, past Fountain Fort Carson High School. So those are kind of the main areas. And then, like I said, this is a little town center, Fountain. There's actually there really didn't used to be anything there, but now there's a little coffee shop, little brewery. We actually did an area tour of the Fountain area. So definitely check that out if you have some interest in Fountain. It goes into a lot more detail about the area. And then, so you have some homes around Fountain proper that were built, probably that 70s, 80s time frame as well. And that's kind of the overview of the area. And then on the southern boundary, if we zoom in a little bit more so you can see it a little bit better, I kind of tend to think of it where Link Road comes into Old Pueblo Road. This is kind of the southern edge of the development. And then on the eastern boundary, you could just pick a line out here, honestly, and kind of decide what the eastern boundary of Fountain Valley is. There's really not a lot to go from out there. But so anyway, that's the general area that we want to talk through right now. And those are the general neighborhoods that you're going to see in that Fountain Valley area as you kind of start to look around on the map a little bit. So on the school district side of it, we showed Fountain Fort Carson High School, and everything that we just went over is in District 8, which is the Fountain Fort Carson School District. Now, on the far northern edge of the area that we talked about, up here on Fontaine, District 3, which is the Widefield Security School District, starts to kind of come down into this area too. But a vast majority of everything that we talked about is going to be District 8. In District 8, again, do your own due diligence, do your research on it, but I would say it's an average school district for the area. It's not super highly rated, but it's definitely not a poorly rated school district at all either. They have some pretty good athletic programs as well. You do get a little bit more turnover in the school system than you might in some other school systems, just because there is such a heavy military population that lives around and attends those schools. So when we are looking at Fountain Valley and we think about recreational things, again, what are you going to do on a day-to-day basis? Fountain Valley and the next couple areas we're going to talk about are probably, I would say, the most limited when it comes to just close by recreation to do. Not that you can't make a little bit of a drive and find some cool stuff to do, but when you talk about just kind of right in that area, what is there to do? So in this Fountain Valley area, there's Fountain Creek Regional Park, which honestly, I've only been there a couple times. It's kind of one of these forgotten regional parks because it is outside of Colorado Springs. It's actually pretty cool. The creek runs right through it. It's got some big mature deciduous trees all along it. It's actually a pretty cool place to go. So I definitely think that is a big draw, or should be a big draw for people that live in the area to go check out for sure. Right here outside of the town center Fountain, you have Metcalf Park. So this is a little city park. It's got place to roller skate at. It's got a bunch of open fields, has a baseball field on it. So this is a cool little park to go check out for sure. Great place to go, walk the dog, go play with the kids, have a picnic, that kind of thing. What you won't see are, these big expansive trail systems like you see up in Black Forest or over on the west side of town and all those different areas. So recreationally, it is certainly a little bit different than other parts of town, but that doesn't mean you can't get outside and do some stuff. And if we zoom back out on the map, just as a point of reference, you can see if you're here in the Fountain area, you can drive up I-25 and you're quickly on that South Academy exit off of I-25 that gets you up by the zoo and all those other running trails that we talked about. So yes, you do have to drive a little bit. It's not right out your back door, but it's not that far away. And if you really want to get out and do stuff in Fountain, there are some cool places to go check out for sure. Now on the business side, as you can probably imagine, a lot of this is kind of chain restaurants, national retailer development. So up along this right here which is it's actually Powers Boulevard as it comes down out of Colorado Springs, kind of wraps around, and this becomes Mesa Ridge Parkway, which then eventually becomes a big interchange at I-25. This area right here has a ton of new development. So like Lowe's, King Supers, all those big box retailers, if you will, and then all those little strip stores or strip shops that go along with that big development. So there's kind of an anchor store, and then there's a lot of small stuff around it. That's what you see up in this area, and this is the main commercial area of the Fountain Valley area. But if you go down to Fountain, like I said, this cool little town center proper, there's actually right on Main Street, there's a coffee shop called Old Town Coffee. Pretty cool. There's actually a little brewery and a little winery. Obviously not, the winery's not there, but like a little tasting area. So that stuff's right here on Main Street in Fountain. So there are some small little local owned businesses, but there's just not as many of them as you might find over on the west side of Colorado Springs or in some of the other areas we're going to talk about. Now on the housing side, I would say this is probably one of the biggest draws and one of the biggest reasons that people head towards that Fountain Valley area is because housing is less expensive and there's a lot of new development, which you can buy, which means you can still buy some new homes. So just going over it statistically, median price point, $423,000. So that's definitely one of the lower median points that we've seen for any of the areas that we've looked at. Max price, $2 million. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw $2 million, I thought, what the heck? In Fountain Valley sold for $2 million. I assumed it was a huge piece of ranch land that was on the eastern edge of that maybe somebody wanted to develop. It was actually only a 9-acre parcel with an older home on it, but it's like prime real estate development land. It's right in the path of success. It's right in the path of development, the path of growth. In that 9 acres, apparently a developer has kind of planned it out and figured that it was worth the $2 million price tag that they bought it for. And also it sounds like Fountain, the city, has agreed to provide some utilities for it, which I mentioned earlier has kind of been a little bit of a problem. So $2 million, that was on the high side, but that is a little bit of an outlier. The low end $189,000 condo. Not too surprising, kind of over on the Main Street part. There's some condos over there, and that one was $189,000. So condo on the low end, development land on the high end. And I think for overall with Fountain, that really kind of jives with what you're seeing down there, that you have some development that people are paying a lot of money for, but there's still some really, really affordable housing options down there. And on the single family side too, even in new construction, there are some really affordable housing options compared to the rest of Colorado Springs. So that takes me to the next number, the next statistic, which is price per square foot, $198, which is by far the lowest that we've seen anywhere in any of the areas that we've talked about so far. It's the only one that's been under $200 a foot. So bang for your buck, if you will. You definitely get more in Fountain. You're going to have the option for new development. Most everything in Fountain, that Fountain Valley area, is going to be substantially newer, 2000s and newer for a lot of it. A good chunk of 90s built, and then kind of some sporadic older homes in those older parts of Fountain in those areas that were kind of outlying areas previously. But so that's, like I just go back to, it's a bang for your buck. Like if you want to get a good quality house at a good quality price point, Fountain Valley is definitely an area to take a look at. Now, what makes it unique and special? So I think people that live in Fountain have a little bit of pride in the fact that, hey, we're not Colorado Springs. Like, we're outside of Colorado Springs proper. Much like on the north side, how people that live in Monument say, hey, we're not Colorado Springs, we're Monument, which is very true. It's the same thing on the south side with Fountain. So just the fact that you're separated from Colorado Springs a little bit, super close proximity to military installations. So we kind of showed on the map, this is Fort Carson right here. This is a big interchange at I-25 with Mesa Ridge Parkway. And it actually goes there. It's gate 20 into Fort Carson. So there's a gate right into Fort Carson right there. And then if we zoom out just a little bit, you can see Schriever. Google still has it as Air Force Base. Technically, it's Space Force Base now. Schriever Space Force Base is right out here on the Eastern Plains. But from Fountain, it's super quick to get up there. You just take Link Road up to Bradley and take Bradley to Drennan to Curtis, and you're right out there at Schriever. And then also good close proximity to Peterson Space Force Base, just going right up Powers. Or actually you can go up Link to Marksheffel, and there's an east gate onto Peterson, which makes it super convenient. And then also just close proximity to the airport for folks that want to work at the airport. It's quick travel times and close proximity to those different things. I think that is a big draw for the area for a lot of people. And just that it is new development. There's growth down there. So as they continue to build residential homes, then commercial infill will start to take place. So that whole area is going to just continue to grow as people see it as a little bit of a value play. There is new development. So there's new homes to be purchased, and there's going to be new commercial that's going to follow that. So I think Fountain Valley, while sometimes if you've lived in Colorado Springs for a long time, you've probably kind of maybe made fun of Fountain a little bit over the years, if I'm totally honest, but I think it's coming into its own. I think there's a lot of new development down there, and I think pretty soon it's definitely going to be like its own legit city that can still have that pride of being detached from Colorado Springs. So from Fountain Valley, we're going to go north just a little bit up to the southeast portion of Colorado Springs. Now, again, this is a nebulous one too. There's no definitive area or definitive boundary to it, but let's check out the map here. What I would consider southeast Colorado Springs, and look at that, Google even agrees with me, southeast Colorado Springs. So I would say I-25 is largely the western boundary. Highway 24, now this is also, you'll see if you're checking out a map, you'll see Martin Luther King Bypass, Fountain Boulevard, Highway 24. That's all this road right here. It's a major artery that goes east-west through the southern part of Colorado Springs. So that would be the northern boundary. Powers Boulevard or Colorado Route 21, I would consider that the eastern boundary. And then really down to, this is where you can kind of debate it a little bit. The southern boundary, remember when we talked about Fountain Valley, we said that Fontaine was the northern boundary. So I would take the southeast part of Colorado Springs down to that line. A lot of folks will say, hey, Security Widefield, it's not really Colorado Springs. It's kind of its own little thing. I can agree with that, but it's largely all grown together so much that I just feel like this area right here, this is Big Johnson Reservoir right here. So kind of all of this area is southeast Colorado Springs. So as we talk about southeast Colorado Springs, what are some of the neighborhoods in there? So if we start up north, the major neighborhood, and it's a large neighborhood, it's a lot of houses, and they're typically a lower price point because, in all honesty, it's probably not the best part of Colorado Springs. It's called Pikes Peak Park in Union, and let's zoom in just a little bit here. So Union and Highway 24 right here, kind of this big housing area right here. This would all be considered Pikes Peak Park. And then down as you go kind of over towards the airport a little bit and come south down here or off of Milton Proby, here you have some newer developments. There's Barnstormers is down in this area. There's a little bit older one called Clearview Estates that's kind of right over in this area. And then as you go a little bit farther south, Painted Sky, this is kind of a little pocket community, little group of houses right here. And then this big area, which like I said, kind of could be considered a separate area, but we're kind of lumping it in with Southeast Colorado Springs. This is Security Widefield, and there's little kind of micro neighborhoods within Security Widefield. But I think most people, as you're doing your research and you're talking with people looking around, they're going to kind of reference Security Widefield kind of all as one homogenous area, honestly. So those are some of the different areas, neighborhoods, I should see, that you'll find in the Southeast area. All right, now for school districts, this area is going to be primarily one school district, but there is a little bit up on the northwest portion of it that's another school district. So if we go back to the map and check this out here, this kind of far northwestern portion of the area that we're talking about, this is District 2, the Harrison School District up here. But everything else down through here is going to be D3, which is the Security Widefield School District. So again, you know, the school districts, I don't think that there's really any school district in Colorado Springs that is just terribly rated. I would say that D2 historically has not been the best rated school district. And I think probably D3 is kind of, you know, has that reputation a little bit as well. Now, again, we all know with school districts, it is so dependent on the specific school and even more so than that, the specific teacher that your kids have. So I encourage people to do your homework, do your research, and don't get swayed just because if you see some like big overarching rating for a district. Really look at the areas that you're going to be specifically in and what schools service those areas to really see if it's maybe going to be a fit or maybe if it's not going to be a fit for you. But those are the two main school districts. Those are the two school districts that you're going to find in the southeast portion of Colorado Springs. Now, as we talk about recreation, we kind of mentioned it before. These portions of Colorado Springs, they don't have the recreational opportunities right outside your back door like the west side of Colorado Springs does. But that doesn't mean there's not anything to do. The southeast portion of Colorado Springs probably, I would say, is maybe the most difficult, depending on where you're at, to get to recreational opportunities. So, and now we're talking about outdoor recreational opportunities first. So within the southeast area, there's a park up here called Panorama Park. That's actually, it's a pretty cool park. And when we did a video on this portion as well, definitely check that video out. We actually did some filming in Panorama Park. Gives you a really good idea of what it looks like. So Panorama Park is pretty darn cool. And then if you zoom back out and look at it, this right here is Memorial Park. And we're going to talk more about this later. This is Prospect Lake, Memorial Park. If you look at kind of just how quick you, depending on where you're at in the southeast portion of Colorado Springs, you can get up to Memorial Park pretty fast. So there are definitely some recreational opportunities close by. They're just not right out your back door. And to the same point, if you're going to drive somewhere a little bit, Highway 24 goes right to I-25, big major interchange. You can go north a little bit and get off on Highway 24 west, go up towards Garden of the Gods and all that stuff over to Manitou Springs. Or you can pop south down just a little bit to Lake Avenue, head over to the Broadmoor and the zoo. So while there's nothing really right outside your back door or very little, you're not that terribly far from some nice, cool recreational areas, kind of like what we talked about with Fountain Valley as well. And the nice thing too about a lot of the southeast part of town is you have a lot of these pocket parks. So we mentioned Panorama Park. That's a bigger community park, but there's a lot of small pocket parks as well. If you just want to go for a walk, take your dog out for a little bit. Again, the same thing that we said about Fountain Valley, you're just not going to find those big trail systems to go do, go trail running for 20 miles on. You're just not going to find that in that part of town, but you don't have to drive that far to get there. Now, on the housing side, this is definitively one of the biggest draws for the southeast part of town is just the housing price points are probably some of the lowest that you're going to find in the greater Colorado Springs area. So let's go through some stats real quick. Median price point. This one's even kind of shocked me a little bit, if I'm being honest. Median price point, $366,000. That's $100,000 lower than a lot of the areas that we're talking about. And if you look at greater El Paso County, median home price is almost about $550,000. Now we're talking almost $200,000 less than it is median across the board in other parts of town. So $366,000 for the median price point. Max price of $615,000. Now I had to think about this one too. Like, where is something in this part of town that sold for that much? And it's actually in that Clearview Estates neighborhood that we mentioned. It's this area kind of right here, just not right off of Highway 21, across from the airport. And it was on an acre of land. So one of those houses was built in like 60s, 70s, maybe even in the 80s. But again, when this was kind of on the outskirts of Colorado Springs, still on an acre of land. So that was the highest sale at $615,000. The lowest price sale in the last 6 months was a condo over off of Jetwing, which is, I'm going to zoom in and kind of show you that area here a little bit. So this is Jetwing right here. The condo was right over in this area right here. So that was the lowest price sale over the last 6 months, was $160,000 for that condo. And then overall price per square foot on average for the whole Southeast area, $213 per square foot, which is certainly one of the lower price points per square foot that we've seen as we've looked over Colorado Springs. Now, just in general, when we talk about housing in this area, I'm going to zoom back out just a little bit here. So this Pikes Peak Park area up here. So this is an area that, you know, back in the day, we'll say, when we used to do some fix and flips and things like that, this was a classic area where you would buy a property that was a little bit run down and fix it up, and there was still a big demand for homes in that area that were remodeled. So this area has kind of continued to struggle with that a little bit, where the homes kind of, they don't have a lot of upkeep. They kind of start to go, you know, south a little bit, if you will. So that's kind of what you see up in this area, but these, not all of them are like that. There are certainly pockets in here where people have an amazing pride of ownership in their house, but you just have to be diligent with your research and make sure that you know the area that you're specifically looking in, because there are some great areas, some great pockets in this area, and there's some that really honestly probably aren't that great, or that would be what a lot of people think. So just got to do your research, because there's definitely good and bad in any of these areas. And then, so a lot of this is going to be kind of that, you know, probably 60s build is what I would say a lot of that is in Pikes Peak Park. And then as you get over here, kind of over towards Powers Boulevard, Highway 21, that's when you're going to start to see some newer stuff. And it really is just kind of this, you know, steady growth as you went from the Colorado Springs proper area growing to the Southeast, where it's 60s built and then 70s built and then 80s built and 90s built. And even now new construction on this far Southeast part of the Southeast area of Colorado Springs. So this right here at Bradley and Powers, this is going to be new construction that's currently being built right now. And then all the way back up, you know, like 2000s and then 90s and then 80s and 70s and then 60s as you get back up. So you're going to see a wide range of price of houses. You're going to see a wide range of types of homes, and you're going to see a wide range of quality of home and neighborhood. So like I said, there's a big draw to the Southeast part of town because of just the value proposition of it, but definitely do your research ahead of time to make sure that you're buying in an area that you're really, really happy with. So what makes the Southeast area of Colorado Springs special, or unique, if you will? I think probably one of the biggest things, and where we see folks, our clients buying there, it's military folks that want close proximity to the installation. So much like what we said for Fountain Valley, it's largely the same thing for Southeast Colorado Springs. So super quick to get to Fort Carson, either in that gate 20 or the North Gate. Super quick to go to Peterson, either the West Gate or the East Gate. And like what we showed before, depending on where you're at, which part of it, you can go out Bradley Road, out to Schriever, or you can go north up Powers and then out 94 to get to Schriever as well. So you have just quick access to major military installations. I think that's a unique thing that a lot of people are drawn to. And then we've already mentioned it a couple of times, just better housing price point than what a lot of Colorado Springs is. So those two things I think are the major unique things about Southeast Colorado Springs. So if you are looking for a good value proposition, or maybe you just have to be close to military installations, maybe Southeast Colorado Springs is a place you want to check out. Let's talk about the east side of Colorado Springs. Now this one's interesting because when we say the east area of Colorado Springs, as you're going to find out, it's really not the far eastern edge. It almost seems more central as you look at Colorado Springs now. But this is kind of, I guess, what I would consider the original east side of Colorado Springs. So let's check it out on the map here. So the last area, the boundary of the last area was this Highway 24. So that's going to be kind of the boundary of, it's going to be the southern edge of the eastern area of Colorado Springs. So this is a southern boundary. Powers Boulevard is going to be the eastern boundary. Now this is This is Stetson Hills, Austin Bluffs, over to kind of this Circle, Union and Circle area, kind of right through here. So this area right here is East Colorado Springs. Now again, because Colorado Springs has grown so much, continued to grow to the east, when you look at a map overall, you're like, man, that's kind of almost in the middle of everything. But this is when you look at a map of Colorado Springs, as you're kind of looking at like different MLS areas or housing areas, or when they kind of break it down, you'll see this pretty commonly called East area. So those are the boundaries of it. Now, some neighborhoods that are located within this area, there's, again, like a lot of places in Colorado Springs, there's a wide range. So you have this big area kind of between Academy and Powers. A lot of this area right here is called Village 7. So you have, and Village 7 actually kind of continues on up north a little bit too. It's just kind of a, I don't know if there's actually a sign anywhere that says Village 7, but just if you've been in the Springs for a long time, this area is largely just known as Village 7. And then there's some kind of micro neighborhoods mixed in there for sure. But you'll hear people talk about Village 7, which is this area right here. So another area that you'll hear people talk about a good bit is the Colorado Springs Country Club area. So that's this area right down here. So this is, it butts up to Palmer Park, which we're going to talk more about. It butts up to Palmer Park. And, you know, it kind of, it's not necessarily this very defined area. Sometimes it gets a little nebulous and people are actually talking about some areas that I probably wouldn't consider that. But that's, this area down here is the Colorado Springs Country Club. Rustic Hills, I want to mention this because I just think it's a super cool area. So this is Constitution Avenue right here. This area right here, you can see the streets don't look quite as congested. These are actually acreage lots. No, they're not like 20 to 40 acres, but they're, you know, half acre to a couple acre lots, a good number of 1 acre lots that are really right in the heart of Colorado Springs. And it's when the city was being developed and platted out, these were actually horse properties and some of them are still zoned for horses. So this is Rustic Hills right here. And interestingly enough, this area just north of Constitution, kind of in the same area, you'll see there's some larger lots up here as well. And this actually sits up on top of the bluff. So you're kind of going uphill from Academy. And when you're going up Constitution, this is all uphill. And then you start to drop back down towards to Power. So you're kind of on top of the hill right here. And back in the day, this was known as Pill Hill. And it's because that's where a lot of doctors live. So there's a lot of really nice houses up there that were, you know, 70s built, 80s built, but just some really cool houses that are set on these larger lots. You get some amazing views of Pikes Peak again because you're sitting up high on this bluff. So this is just a super cool area because it's right in the middle of town, but it's big lots. And then you also have even some newer construction. So over here, as you get close to, this is Platt Avenue right here. As you get over in this area, this is Patriot Park. There's actually been some commercial space, like office buildings that were built there, but there's a little section of residential where they're building new homes actually. It's kind of a little pocket community, but the point being that you can get stuff all the way from, you know, early 1900s back on the east side of this portion, kind of over here towards Union, all the way to new construction over here on the far east side of the eastern area of Colorado Springs. So there's a wide range of options when it comes to neighborhoods and housing types as well. This area is all going to be District 11 schools. District 11 is the biggest school district in the Colorado Springs area. It encompasses most of Colorado Springs proper, and this is all District 11. I think one of the best things about Colorado Springs, this is a big statement, one of the best things about Colorado Springs, and the east area gets to take advantage of it, is Palmer Park. Palmer Park is a city park for Colorado Springs that's 737 acres. So it's this huge green spot on the map right here. And it's beautiful because from the eastern side of it, it kind of is, you know, lower lying, if you will, kind of just right at the base of these bluffs. And then it slopes up into the west. And on the west side, you have these bluffs that drop off that just give you amazing mountain views from Palmer Park. And there's hiking trails, biking trails, running trails, all kinds of trails throughout it. You feel like you're on the west side of town on that section 16 trail in the southwest part of town. You feel like you're running on those trails, but you're right in the heart of Colorado Springs. And then down here on the southeast corner of Palmer Park, there's a huge athletic field that they have with playground stuff for the kids. There's a dog park down there. So Palmer Park is a huge draw, not just for people that live in this east area of Colorado Springs, but people all over the city drive to Palmer Park. I even go to Palmer Park now, and I live out in Black Forest. So I'll drive the 45 minutes sometimes to go to Palmer Park. So that's just a huge recreational draw for so many people that live in this part of town. And to have that right outside your back door, it's a pretty cool thing for sure. 737 acre city park is not the norm by any means. And then if you don't want to get outside, but you kind of want to do some other recreating, you are very close to Powers Boulevard, which has all the shopping. It's all the big box retail stuff, the movie theater, restaurants, all that stuff is along Powers Boulevard, which is, again, extremely close to the area that we're talking about. So whether you want to do outdoor recreation or you're kind of more the inside recreation type of person, you're definitely going to be close by to any of that stuff if you're in this part of town. So what does it cost to live in this part of town? The last two areas we've talked about have been kind of a little bit better value, if you will, than some of the other parts of town. So statistically, median home price in the east area of Colorado Springs is $400,000. So well below the overall greater El Paso County median price. So $400,000, max price of $1.15 million. That's a high price point for this part of town. So where's it at? It's actually kind of close to that area that I mentioned previously that I said what kind of was known as Pill Hill. Not quite exactly right there, but it was right up in this area, and the home was about 5,000 square foot. It was on a 2.5 acre lot, which is, I mean, again, you're right in the middle of town. And you have a 2.5 acre lot sitting up on the bluff, ridiculous Pikes Peak views, fully remodeled. I mean, the house was decked out, $1.5 million. That was by far the highest sale in this part of town in the last 6 months. And then the lowest was a condo, as we've seen a lot of, at $140,000. And it was down here off of Murray, kind of the southern part of the area off of Murray Boulevard. So 140,000 on the low end, all the way up to 1.5 million on the high end. So a pretty wide range. Most of the homes, that median price point just feels right when I think about it. Because when I think of the east part of Colorado Springs, I'm really thinking like that. I kind of think more like 450 is probably what you're buying at. But 400 tells me there's been some lower price point sales as well. So a good value proposition on the east side of town, just like we saw in some of the other areas too. So what makes this area unique or special? So I think there's kind of two things. And one, I just got to hit it again. It's Palmer Park. It's a massive park that feels like you're in the middle of the mountains, and it's right in the middle of town. That's definitely the biggest draw that makes this part of town just feel special. That, and then the other thing too, is that you kind of, like what I just said, you feel like you're in Colorado Springs. Like when you drive through this part of town, it's a lot of 60s, 70s, some 80s built houses. But you just kind of feel like, oh, this is Colorado Springs. Like if you've lived here for a while or if you've visited very much, I feel like when you drive, you drive up Oro Blanco through Village 7 and you're like, wow, this is Colorado Springs. Like that's what I think of when I think of Colorado Springs. Now, obviously, touristy stuff, that kind of stuff, yeah, you think of Pikes Peak and the mountains and all that. But when you think of the city of Colorado Springs and just the average working class person, at least me personally, this is the area that I think about. It just feels like, I think it feels like Colorado Springs probably 30 years ago, before all the crazy developments started, maybe even 20 years ago, before all the crazy developments started and you saw this rapid growth and influx of people. I feel like this part of town was just, that's what Colorado Springs was. And it's pretty cool. And I actually really like the east part of town. We're going to talk about two areas of Colorado Springs, but we're going to talk about them together because they're very similar in location and shape and kind of what's going on, if you will. So the two areas we're going to talk about are Powers and Marksheffel. So again, if you're learning about Colorado Springs, checking out a map, kind of just researching it, you will hear Powers Boulevard talked about a lot. So the Powers area is from, this right here is Powers Boulevard. This is Woodman Road. So at this intersection here, down Powers, down to roughly Highway 24, and then over to Marksheffel, that's a road, all the way back up north to Woodman. This long, skinny section right here, you'll often hear referred to as the Powers area. Sometimes you'll hear people say the Powers corridor. So this is Powers. The second area that we're going to talk about here at the same time is Marksheffel. So Marksheffel is essentially just the same size and shape, just the next block east. So again, Marksheffel here on this road right here, now that would be the west boundary of the Marksheffel area. And then the eastern boundary, largely I think people kind of consider it to go out here to just south of Falcon and then kind of down to Highway 94. So kind of this big area excluding kind of like bumping around this section right here, because that's that Falcon area that we talked about. So this is Marksheffel and this is Powers. So these two areas, the reason there's a lot of similarities is it's the growth of Colorado Springs to the east. So you can see here, Powers, this area is largely already built out. And when we talk about neighborhoods here, we're talking about a big area that's called Stetson Hills, a little area up here called Indigo Ranch, and then a big area down here called Springs Ranch, and then Cimarron Hills. So those are kind of the major areas north to south is Stetson Hills, Springs Ranch, Cimarron Hills. Like I said, there's some other sub areas mixed in there for sure. Like I mentioned, there's one up here, Indigo Ranch, which is a little bit newer. There's this pocket right here, used to be the Springs Ranch golf course. That golf course went defunct and was bought out by a developer, Classic Homes, and they've built homes on it. So there's actually new construction right here along Powers as well. And then over here in Marksheffel, the main areas that you can see that are already built out or are building right now is, actually let's start down here. This right here is Claremont Ranch. So this community is fully built out. It's been done for a number of years, probably over a decade now. No new construction, and like I said, fully developed. This area up here is Banning Lewis Ranch. This is one of the biggest communities in Colorado Springs for like a master planned community. And it's only going to get massively bigger because all of this area here, and even north of this up here, this was all the Banning Lewis Cattle Ranch. So the developer has bought most of this land here. They're actually starting to develop houses that it will eventually go almost all the way to Falcon. This is that Falcon Highlands community. So right up against the backside of that is where, as far as Banning Lewis is going to go. And then I honestly don't know the extent of how far to the southeast it's going to go, but it will, when it's said and done, it'll be, I believe, the largest community in Colorado Springs. So that's Banning Lewis Ranch. So those are kind of the two big things going on in the Marksheffel area. And there's a lot of other development that'll start to happen as well out Highway 24 and then south of Falcon. So all this will eventually get filled in, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, and be very, very similar, I think, to what this Powers area is. So when we talk about the kind of this area, housing prices are going to vary a good bit because you're going to go from 1980s built down, maybe even some 70s built in Cimarron Hills, Springs Ranch, 80s built, Stetson Hills, a lot of 90s built, and then even up into the 2000s with Indigo Ranch up here. So you have a lot of what I would call, relatively older homes, almost 40-year-old homes now. And then you also have brand new construction out here in Marksheffel. So you have a wide range of home types and therefore a wide range of home prices. Let me just kind of go over some home facts real quick for these, just so you kind of get a rough idea. So in the Powers area, $450,000 median home price kind of makes sense for the area, the age of the homes. But you do have some expensive homes in there too. There was a $770,000 sale in the last 6 months. That was up in that Indigo Ranch area. So again, a little bit newer. And then you have a $120,000 sale down here off of Marksheffel. And that's in an area called Antelope Ridge. And I got to hit on this point real quick, because if you're looking at houses and you're looking in Colorado Springs, you're going to see a house that's 2,200 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath, and it's going to be under $200,000. You're going to be like, my gosh, I have found the best deal in Colorado Springs and nobody else has found it yet. Probably not the case. Antelope Ridge is special in the fact that it's what's called a land lease area. So you're buying the house, but you don't own the land that it sits on. You're actually leasing the land. They're all on a 100-year land lease, but you pay for that every month as well. So I haven't checked for a while. I don't have a lot of folks that show much interest in it anymore once they understand that it is a land lease area. But I believe that the fee, it's not really an HOA fee, but the fee for the land lease and the amenities all together, it was about $600 a month. So when you take that $600 a month and you just kind of combined it towards your additional monthly payment, you could buy another house, regular house, not on a land lease. So if you see a really, really cheap price and it's Antelope Ridge off of Marksheffel, that's probably what it is. So that was the least expensive purchase, was that home for $120,000 in Antelope Ridge. And like I mentioned, you're going to see homes in here from maybe even, honestly, now that I think about it, down in Cimarron Hills, maybe even late 60s, and then all the way up to basically, 2020 construction. And then in the Marksheffel area, it's all going to be a lot newer. Banning Lewis Ranch actually started out in the mid 2000s, kind of right before the housing crash, started to get built out. Housing crash happened, everything stopped, and it was not really much going on for several years, probably, gosh, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so. And then another developer came in, bought the project, and they've been just kind of building like crazy since then. So you will see price points out here that will be down in the Claremont Ranch area. There's some townhomes down here. You'll see price points down here in the mid to high 200s for a townhome. And then you'll see brand new homes in Banning Lewis Ranch or maybe a year or two old that somebody's selling, and they'll be right at 7 figures, right at $1 million. The one thing that makes this area a little bit different than the Powers area is you can see there is still a lot of rural land out here. So you'll still see some properties, on 5 acres, on 10 acres, that kind of thing. Then those properties typically get sold to developers as they're kind of just in the path of progress, but you will still see those as you're looking around right now. This pretty much all this area is going to be in the District 49, which is the Falcon School District. Falcon School District is a large school district. It goes from, down here essentially at Powers and Highway 24 all the way out through Falcon and up into the Black Forest area. So very large school district that encompasses this area. Again, that's D49. This is one where I think it's super important. I mentioned this earlier that definitely research the school district, but also research specific schools if that's something that's important to you, especially with a district the size of D49. You have a very wide variation of school ratings, I believe, when you get just different parts of the district. So D49 is big. Definitely look at the specific schools, not just the district as you research D49. So what do people do that live in these areas? Powers and Marksheffel. A lot of it is going to be commercial recreation, if you will. So there's a lot of shopping. Again, that whole Powers corridor area, tons of shops, tons of restaurants. So that's what a lot of the recreation is going to be. Now, you can look at a map and you can also see there's a good bit of green in here. There's a lot of little pocket parks. They're not big parks, but they're those parks where it's maybe like one block. It has some playground equipment for the kids, a little bit of a decent sized field so you can throw the Frisbee, throw the football around, whatever it might be. So you'll see a lot of those in the Stetson Hills and then the Springs Ranch area and even down into Cimarron Hills a little bit. Now, whenever you get over into the Marksheffel area, again, it's primarily about Banning Lewis Ranch. Like that really is the area that's not just wide open ranch land currently right now. Banning Lewis has they call it their ranch house. It's not really a full clubhouse. They have, kind of just a little small workout area. They have a pool. There's splash pads for the kids in the summertime, but there are some really nice parks mixed in Banning Lewis, and they have the plan to continue to develop parks as that community grows. So for the Marksheffel area, the parks within Banning Lewis are definitely the biggest outdoor recreation draw right now. So again, recreation in the area, you're driving to most of it. If you want to go see a movie, you want to go get a bite to eat, lots of options for that. And then if you want to do some outdoor recreation, it's kind of probably more going to the local park than it is actually going for that 10, 20 mile trail run. For anything like that, you are going to have to drive a little bit. I think a good thing about these areas though is you can make your way back across Colorado Springs, back across, this is Woodman Road up here. That's probably the best east-west thoroughfare from this area is to go across Woodman. So you can get over to the west side of town, Ute Valley Park, some of those areas in maybe about 20 minutes. But if you want something different that maybe isn't quite as busy, you can also head north out of this area up through Falcon or up Black Forest Road. And you can get into some of those parks that are up in the Black Forest area, like the Pineries Open Space, Black Forest Regional Park, some of those things that actually drive-wise are even going to be closer than going to the west side of town. So there are some options. Again, they're just not right outside your back door like they are if you're on the west side of town. So why would you want to live in this part of town? I think there's a couple things, and it really kind of dovetails with what we talked about with the east area of Colorado Springs. It's close proximity to military installations, and then you're also kind of in the heart of the commercial development. Now, there's definitely some new development on the commercial side on the far north side of town, but as far as Colorado Springs, kind of the heart of it, Powers Boulevard is the commercial thoroughfare right now. It used to be Academy Boulevard, 10, 20 years ago, but now it's definitely Powers Boulevard. So you want to be close to that commercial stuff. You want to be able to go out to eat really quick. You want to go to a movie and only drive 5 minutes. All that stuff is going to be right close by. And then also, I think it's unique in the fact that there's so much development going to the east. So if you aren't going to be here for a few years, but you want to have a brand new house, one of these areas might make a lot of sense because they're going to continue to build houses. And then the commercial always follows residential, right? So as they continue to build residential houses out to the east, that commercial development is going to continue to follow. So I think that that Marksheffel area is really going to be, you know, you look down the road 20 years, it's probably going to be largely what Powers is right now. Northeast Colorado Springs, now kind of central Colorado Springs, but the area is Northeast Colorado Springs because for years and years and years, until all of our recent crazy growth, this was the far northeast part of Colorado Springs. If I think back to 2005, when I first moved to Colorado Springs, I lived over on the west side of town, over in Woodland Park off of Garden of the Gods Centennial area. And I remember this vividly in my mind. A buddy of mine and I, we were just kind of cruising around looking for something to eat, right? And we couldn't find anything we really wanted that was on the west side. So we drove up I-25 to Woodman and took Woodman Road all the way over to Powers and then down Powers. I felt like I was in Kansas. I didn't know what was going on. It was like there wasn't much out there really. It's amazing in 20 years, the amount of growth that has happened. Now, yes, there was still stuff out there, but the interchanges were different because Woodman wasn't a major road like it is now. So just in that amount of time, it's night and day difference of this part of town that really, like I said, was honestly kind of felt like the middle of town. Now it feels like the middle of town. Whereas before, you felt like you were on the far, far edges of Colorado Springs. So boundaries of it, Woodman Road on the north, all the way over to Powers Boulevard, and that down south. And it just kind of bumps up against the northern boundary of that east area that we talked about. So it's kind of Stetson Hills. And then this is Austin Bluffs that curves down and around, goes by Palmer Park, goes by the UCCS campus, turns into Garden of the Gods, and then Garden of Gods Road, and then back over to I-25. And then I-25 being the western boundary of this northeast area of Colorado Springs. So the neighborhoods that are within this area, there's a wide variation of neighborhoods in this northeast area, just like what a lot of parts of Colorado Springs are like, but maybe a little bit more so. So one of my favorite neighborhoods in Colorado Springs is a little area, and I don't think a lot of people even know about it, but it's called Arendale. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So this is Academy Boulevard, so North Academy. But you take some of these roads back here, like this is Vickers Drive right here. You take Vickers back, and there's this community back here. It's called Arendale. You feel like you're just totally removed from Colorado Springs because you have this huge park of Pulpit Rock Park on the west side. And then you're just kind of tucked in all the trees. And you're kind of behind this commercial development, and it's kind of like a little valley that goes back in here. So Arendale's super beautiful. And then you have other areas that I don't really even know what the names of them are, if they have actual names or not. But there's Vista Grande, which is a very large area. It's kind of all of this area right here. So there's some sub neighborhoods within Vista Grande, but largely this, when you hear people talk about it, this is Vista Grande. There's a little tiny community up here called Brookwood that is right off of, again, this is Academy Boulevard, but you take this little road right here and just this little tiny loop of houses is Brookwood. Super cool little pocket community. It's kind of almost a mirror of that on the other side of Academy. And then you have University Bluffs. This is, I mentioned University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. The area up above it is University Bluffs. It kind of overlooks Austin Bluffs open space. Some beautiful homes up here at some pretty high price points, but definitely worth it for the views. Down here off of Ranch Drive, you have another little community that is kind of that 60s, 70s built. And then you get on out here kind of towards the edge of it, up towards kind of the corner of Woodman and Powers. You have Wagon Wheel is a community up here. Sierra Ridge is right off of Austin Bluffs and Stetson Hills. So this is Sierra Ridge right here. So there's just a wide variation of neighborhood types and a wide range of home values and home ages as well that we're going to talk a little bit more about. All of this northeast area of Colorado Springs is all going to be District 11. Woodman Road is the school district boundary between District 20 to the north and then District 11. So this is all going to be District 11 schools. So on the recreation side, the northeast part of town, I think it's got a couple kind of anchors to it that really make it feel like, yeah, hey, I can really relatively close by. I can go recreate outside if I want to. One I've already mentioned, it's Pulpit Rock Park. So you can see the size of Pulpit Rock and Austin Bluffs open space combined. This was Palmer Park down here, just as a point of reference. This is 737 acres, so not quite the same size and not as many trails and infrastructure in it, but a ton of open space. There's a lot of trails that do go through it if you want to go for a longer run. You definitely feel like you're in the foothills when you're in Pulpit Rock. So you definitely have that. You also have Cottonwood Creek Park, which it feels a little bit more like a suburban park, if that makes sense. There's a Y pool there. There's a disc golf course, big athletic field. So it's a cool park that just kind of feels like this suburban community park, but it's good size too. I remember years ago, old coworker of mine, his son ran cross country in junior high school, and they actually had a cross country race there. So it kind of tells you like it's a decent sized park. There's, at least a couple miles of trails. So you've got Cottonwood Creek, and then up on the top of this, I know it's kind of hard to tell obviously on the map, but there's kind of a ridge that runs through this area from Academy and over to Powers. There's a ridge that kind of runs through the middle of it. And there's Sunset Mesa open space up here. And you can kind of see there's a lot of trails that cut through this open space. So it's kind of a skinny open space that kind of winds its way through the community, but there's definitely a lot of trails. And you can, jump on these trails and then kind of run down the sidewalk and get over to Cottonwood Creek. So if you want to get outside and do some stuff, you certainly have the opportunity in this northeast area, and you can see the close proximity to Palmer Park too. So you definitely have some options, what I like to say, right in your backyard. But another great feature of it is because Woodman Road is that northern boundary of the area, and with a combination of Academy and Union and Austin Bluffs, you can get to Woodman really quick from the heart of this area. And then you're really, really fast to get over to the west side, over here to Ute Valley Park, Blodgett Peak, and some of those other open spaces and trails that we talked about. So you have stuff right in your backyard, but you also have the ability to get over to the west side pretty quick for some of those bigger trails. So let's jump into the housing stuff right now. What does it look like cost-wise to get into this part of town? So median price, $465,000. So for the area, honestly, not too bad really. Max price point of $1.4 million. Now that $1.4 million sale, I mentioned this University Bluffs, University Park area before. So it was a house that was up here on the bluff, and it was, just beautiful custom home up on the bluff, a little bit larger lot, crazy great views of the Front Range and Pikes Peak. So that was 1.4. And then the lowest price sale in the last 6 months was $170,000. And you guessed it, it was a condo. And it was a condo right on North Academy, kind of right in this area right here. So you can see big wide range. I would say most of these homes, when you think about this part of town, if you've been here a while, you've driven through the areas a lot, you're thinking of this Vista Grande area, the part south of that a little bit here, Ranch Drive, and all the way up through this Dublin and Union area. So a lot of these houses, all built around the same time frame, have a real similar look. There's some ranchers, a lot of split levels, not quite as many 2 stories, but a few, but a lot of like raised ranchers and split levels, and then ranch homes. So that's what you get a lot of in here. And that's what makes sense at that like $500,000 price point. That's kind of what I feel like most people are buying in that area. So along with those houses that are a little bit older, you do actually have some options, very few now, but there are some options if you want brand new construction, but you really, really want to be in this northeast part of town. And that is, there's a couple builders that are building right off of Woodman Road. One is David Weekly Homes and the other one is Toll Brothers Homes. And both of them are building either townhome, that's what Toll Brothers is building, or kind of just like some zero lot line homes where they're single family homes, but they're not technically attached, but they're super close to each other. So those two products look very, very similar. But if you want new construction and you really want to be in this part of town and you want to only be around $500,000, believe it or not, you have some options. So that's a pretty cool thing about this part of town, is just a wide range, a little bit older, it's a brand new, and still be around that $500,000 price point. And then that other statistic that we've kind of been talking about a little bit is that price per square foot. So for the Northeast area, $207 a square foot. I wanted to mention that just because it's a little bit lower than most of the areas that we've looked at. We know there was that Fountain Valley area that was $198, I think it was, per square foot. But other than that, this is one of the lowest price per square foot cost in the greater Colorado Springs area. So it kind of tells you, hey, I'm getting maybe a little bit bang for my buck if I want a little bit larger home, or I want to be at a little bit lower price point, but still have a good size home. $207 a square foot kind of gives you a good feel that you can probably find something that's going to really fit what you're looking for. And then when I think about uniqueness for the area, a lot of it is kind of that housing stuff that we talked about, just wide range of options, wide range of price points, but really just kind of that heart of it being like that $500,000, which for the greater El Paso County area is about that medium price point around that. So you've got a lot of options at that price point. There's a lot of cool little neighborhoods. There's a lot of pocket parks in those neighborhoods. There's also some big parks to have. So you've got some just cool stuff in the Northeast. And then also, I think it's just, like I mentioned before, it feels like it's the heart of Colorado Springs now because you have so much growth to the north and the east and then a little bit, to that southeast we talked about. It really kind of feels like this section of Colorado Springs is kind of becoming the new central part of Colorado Springs as far as location to get to other stuff. Now, it doesn't have a downtown area or anything like that. Like we're going to talk about our downtown Colorado Springs area here in a little bit. So you don't have that feel to it, but just geographically where it sits within Colorado Springs, you kind of feel like you're in the middle of everything. All right, so we only have 2 more areas to go, and that'll be all the areas of the greater Colorado Springs market. So the next one we're going to jump into is Old Colorado City. Now, this one is a super, super popular area. There's been a lot of revitalization, and it's just a cool, trendy place, I guess, honestly. And it's kind of what a lot of people think of when they think of Colorado Springs. And I think that I know I've kind of said that a few times throughout the video, but it's like different groups of people have a different vision of Colorado Springs. And I kind of feel like people that have been here as tourists in the past think of Colorado Springs as Old Colorado City. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to show you the boundaries on the map here. So on the east side, I-25. So pretty straightforward. So I-25 on the east side. Uinta on the north side. And Uinta kind of curves around. It kind of goes up here towards 31st. And this is where there's kind of probably a little bit of a debate on, well, is that west side? Is that Old Colorado City? I kind of think that Old Colorado City kind of stops around 31st and then it kind of comes back down. Now, technically, that when we talked about Manitou Springs, we talked about the division between Springs and Manitou Springs was kind of right in this area where there's a kind of an archway on Colorado Avenue. So some people kind of consider this part up here Old Colorado City as well. But nonetheless, this general area and then down around into Lower Gold Camp Road. So when we talked about the southwest part of town, Gold Camp Road was kind of the northern boundary. So this area is going to butt up to it. And then you have this newer area that we're going to talk about right here and then back out to I-25. So this area right here is Old Colorado City. Now, when people really think of Old Colorado City, they're primarily thinking of this stretch right through here. This is Colorado Avenue. This is where there's a lot of old businesses, old buildings, kind of commercial district, if you will, from the late 1800s. So a lot of people picture this area right here whenever they're thinking about Old Colorado City. Now, for neighborhoods in Old Colorado City, there's really not many that I'm going to mention. Like if you go through and if you look at, legal descriptions for these homes in Old Colorado City, a lot of them are like somebody's last name or it's something addition of somebody's last name, just the way things were plotted out in the late 1800s. So we're not really going to go over a lot of neighborhoods. This is just generally considered Old Colorado City. And honestly, I think a lot of people, including myself, we just call this Old Colorado City, south of Highway 24. So that's what this area right here, I guess, could kind of be known as. And this spot right up here, this is a little bit different because this is a newer construction area. Started in about the mid 2000s, I think probably 2005, 2006. This is Gold Hill Mesa. So this neighborhood up here, like I said, vastly newer than anything else. And it actually kind of continues on the other side of Gold Camp Road as well. So this is Gold Hill Mesa over here, just a little bit older portion of it. But this area right here was actually, it's where they would dump mine tillings from all the mining, all the gold mining that was taking place in the mountains just west of Colorado Springs. So there was a lot of debate because I was in Colorado Springs. I'd only been here a couple years whenever Gold Hill Mesa was going to be developed. And I remember my neighbor, who at the time he's probably in his 60s at the time, so he's probably in his 80s now, but he was just adamant like, man, I can't believe anybody would build a house up there. I can't believe anybody would buy a house up there especially. And he kind of just like went down the rabbit hole of all the history of that area and why the soil wasn't good to build on and why there were a lot of problems with it. So I will say, we've had some people buying Gold Hill Mesa. Everybody seems to be totally fine with it. It's cool that you can get this new build area with these views that overlook the city and kind of back up towards Garden of the Gods and be on the west side of town and something a little bit newer. So those are kind of really the neighborhoods, if you will. Because it's such a small area, everybody just kind of lumps it together as Old Colorado City. Now, just like with all the other ones, I want to hit on the school district real quick. So this area, Old Colorado City, is District 11. You remember I mentioned that that's the largest school district in Colorado Springs. So very large district, covers all of Old Colorado City, bumps up against D12 down to the bottom and D14 over on the west side against with that Manitou school district. So everything's going to be D11. Again, ton of research to be done. It's the biggest school district, so there's a lot of information out there about it. I will say, as I mentioned before, definitely research the specific schools because since D11 is so big, the schools that service Old Colorado City might be a lot different than the ones that service the northeast part of town, for example. Now, for local businesses, man, there are a ton of local businesses in Old Colorado City. I would probably say all the businesses in Old Colorado City are locally owned businesses. So I'm not going to go through all of them. There's, like I said, there's just, as you go through this strip, and I'll kind of show you back on the map here, this strip from where this is Limit Avenue right here, kind of all the way up to 31st, maybe definitely back here at 26th. This area right here is just heavy commercial, you know, shops on the lower level, some condos, but not a lot anymore on the upper levels of the buildings. So this is like the heavy commercial district along Colorado Avenue. So along Colorado Avenue, tons of places. I will mention one that's, because it's a little bit newer place, and I'll give them a little shout out. I've been there a couple times. I think it's pretty good. It's called Story Coffee. It's right on Colorado Avenue. I think their coffee's really cool, really good, cool little environment. They're a little bit newer, so we'll help them out a little bit if we can. But like I said, just a ton of cool shops along Colorado Avenue for sure. And you really see that a lot during tourist season. So I mentioned this when we talked about Manitou, of just a lot of tourists that come. Old Colorado City is the same way because most of the tourism is focused around Garden of the Gods and Pikes Peak. And Old Colorado City is right at the base of these things. So you see a ton of tourists. If you're walking down Colorado Avenue in December, it's going to look vastly different than it does in the middle of July. So once tourist season hits in the summertime, it gets super busy over there. Now, that being said, it's not as if it's so busy where it's not enjoyable. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh gosh, I can't find a place to park. I can't get into any of these shops. I can't get into a restaurant. It's not like that. Like, it's busy, but it's like a vibrant kind of busy of just a lot of people out and about doing stuff, but you can still get into places, which to me, that's kind of the big difference. All right, so we mentioned the neighborhoods, how there's not really a ton of kind of main neighborhoods that you think of, but let's talk about the housing piece of it for a little bit. So what makes Old Colorado City somewhat special from the housing area is that there's a lot of old stuff. A vast majority of the houses that are along Colorado Avenue and kind of this heart of Old Colorado City were built in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So think kind of like 1870 to 1915 probably. That's when most of those houses in that heart of Old Colorado City were built. And then of course, you know, as you get out a little bit farther, you get some newer houses down here close to I-25 along Spruce Street and Walnut off of Bijou. These homes are older too. These are going to be like late 1800s. Again, this was just kind of where Colorado Springs as the city was initially founded and started to be built in downtown Colorado Springs and Old Colorado City. So that's why that's where you see the oldest houses in the area. So price-wise, median price, $421,000. So, you know, there's a big mix of homes in OCC. And one of them that I'll just tell you right now, the least expensive one that sold in the last 6 months was $185,000. But that house was real close to I-25, and it was in need of a lot of work. I mean, you probably just want to scrape it. Maybe you could try to remodel it, but needed it a lot of work. So that's what you see with a lot of these houses in OCC is that they need a lot of work. They haven't been, you know, they just kind of been let go. They're, you know, 150, sometimes 150-year-old houses, and nobody's really done much to them over the years. So that really, it just kind of varies the price point a lot, where you'll see something that is, you know, pretty darn inexpensive, but it needs a ton of work, maybe even needs a lot of structural work. And then the highest price one was right at $1 million, and that was up here off Uinta. There's this little area, I think it's called Crown Point, sticks in my mind. But anyway, it has amazing views. So there's a little kind of half moon shape or half circle shape road that kind of splits off of kind of up on a bluff. And there's a handful of houses that sit out on the edge of this bluff, just amazing views of Pikes Peak. So, you know, this is like about a 3,800 square foot house, super nice looking house. But the views, that's where the value was. So you're like deep in the heart of OCC, west side, but amazing views as well. So $1 million was the most expensive one in the last 6 months. 185,000 was the least expensive. And like I said, it was pretty much in need of everything. And then the price per square foot, a little bit higher than some of the other areas we've talked about. And you can see a definite delineation This one is $263 per square foot. Now, it's almost as if you can see everything on the west side, and up north is at a good bit higher price point per square foot than what the east and southeast part of Colorado Springs is. So that's definitely a variable that you'll see very distinctly, is more expensive per square foot, so kind of less bang for your buck, if you will, to be in what I would kind of call those more stereotypically desirable areas. So those areas are going to be west side and north side and northwest side and southwest. So kind of all the west and then the far north. And then the other parts of Colorado Springs, maybe not quite as much demand. So you see those price per square foot, bang for your buck, a little bit better, at least on the housing side of things. And we kind of mentioned that most of OCC built before 1920. This area here south of Highway 24, you'll see some 50s and 60s built in there. And then as I mentioned, this area up here, Gold Hill Mesa, started in about the mid 2000s, and they're actually still building up there right now too. They opened up a new filing that they're building in. So that's kind of the heart of OCC. And what's also interesting about it on the housing standpoint is I think it's probably one of two areas in Colorado Springs, the other one being downtown that we're going to talk about next, where you're actually seeing lots be purchased with a house on it and the house being scraped off or just, demolished and gotten rid of, and then a new house being built. Most of Colorado Springs, that doesn't happen. The price points just don't make sense. But for OCC, people love the vibrancy of it. They want to be in that area, but they just don't want to live in a 125-year-old house. They want to live in a new house. So they do a pretty good job. I think most of the developers do. If they do a scrape, they build a house that the architecture kind of matches these older homes. But you do have some of those options that you're starting to see a little bit as well. Now, we can't leave OCC, though, before we talk about recreation, right? So what do? It's the west side of town. Everybody knows what you're going to do. You're going to get outside. You're going to enjoy the mountains. You're going to enjoy the scenery. Red Rock Canyon open space. This is a really cool area because it opens up into so many other trails. You can take off for a run here or a bike ride. There we go. Now you can see all the trails. All these trails in here. But you can also take some of these trails up through the neighborhoods, jump on these other trails. And I mean, you can ride or run forever in Red Rocks. It really seems like it goes on forever. And it's that classic rock outcropping look that we have here along the Colorado Front Range. The hogbacks, you see it in Garden of the Gods is by far the most popular example of it. But then the Red Rocks is just south of that. And it's kind of the same rock formation stood up and eroded away. So super cool scenery, super good recreation. I mentioned Garden of the Gods. I'll show this to you. I'll zoom back out on the map real quick. So Garden of the Gods right here. So you can see right at the end of Old Colorado City, there's these roads that kind of go up into Garden of the Gods. So sometimes these parking areas aren't quite as big. Like Ridge Road is the kind of the main southern entrance, not by the outpost, but Ridge Road goes up into Garden of the Gods. There's no like huge parking lot down in this area like there is up by the visitor center, or what I call the main entrance. But nonetheless, you can still get into Garden of the Gods. You can even, not saying you should park on the neighborhood streets, but if you did, there's a lot of trails that access into Garden of the Gods. So you've got all that super close by. So got Red Rock Canyon, Garden of the Gods, right at the base of Pikes Peak if you want to go for a bigger climb, a bigger hike. And then, like I said, if you're like, hey, I don't want to do any of that stuff, I just want to go get some fudge or some ice cream, you can do that too right on Colorado Avenue. So whether it's outside or inside, OCC definitely has the recreation you're looking for. So OCC, it is special, it is unique. What are some of the highlights? I would say personally, it's the fact that it's very, very walkable. A lot of Colorado Springs is unfortunately urban sprawl. Like out east, it's just a lot of just the suburbs keep going forever and you're really not walking anywhere. OCC, not the case. You could live anywhere in this area we've talked about and you're walking to shops, you're walking to restaurants, you're walking to the bar to grab a drink. It's just very walkable. And I know that's what a lot of people really, really like about the area. I think the other thing too is making it pretty special now is as the downtown area in Colorado Springs has kind of revitalized so much, you're seeing a lot of that in OCC now. So there's parts of Old Colorado City, like right on Colorado Avenue, that we're starting to see commercial buildings demolished. Not stuff from like the 1800s, but some of these that were built in maybe like the 50s or 40s, and they just weren't taken care of. They were kind of turned into like just honestly really crappy places. So those are starting to get demolished and you're starting to see some new stuff go in. You're starting to see kind of like, there's three things that I think you see when it's like a trendy revitalized area. There's breweries, coffee shops, and CrossFit gyms. And there's all of those on Colorado Avenue now. So you're just seeing that stereotypical revitalization. But honestly, I think I kind of joke about it a little bit, but I really like to see it because it used to be, Old Colorado City wasn't really a place I really like to go very much, honestly. And our office is literally 5 minutes away. Our office is, well, right where that blue dot is actually. So you can kind of tell like we're right there, but I just never wanted to go over there very much. But that's starting to change a little bit right now. So OCC, it's on the upswing and it's super special for Colorado Springs. And last, but certainly not least, area of Colorado Springs is the central area, which is going to encompass downtown Colorado Springs. So let me show you the boundaries of it. On the west side, you've got I-25. Pretty clear delineation of the central area of Colorado Springs with I-25 on the west. On the north side, Fillmore is this road right here. Fillmore runs up to the west and kind of through that west side area that we talked about in the last video. So Fillmore's the north side. Some people will say Austin Bluffs, which is up here. I guess you could say that for central Colorado Springs. This area is called Cragmore, and it kind of gets mixed up. Is it in the northeast? Is it north? Is it central? So I typically, though, for central Colorado Springs, say Fillmore. And then on the east side, this is Union Boulevard. Now, that's what I think of when I think of the eastern boundary of the central portion of Colorado Springs. I think of Union. Some people will say Circle over here. You know, it's not too far off. It's just a little bit farther out. This is kind of more east to me over here by the mall, but nonetheless. And then south all the way down where I-25 kind of wraps around, and then Highway 24 takes off. You got Memorial Park down here. So this area right here is what we're talking about when we're talking about central Colorado Springs. Now, neighborhoods in Colorado Springs, this is again a little bit like old Colorado City, where these neighborhoods are kind of more like sub areas. They're not really, you know, it's not like now when there's a big development and they put a big entry to it and you know, hey, that's Banning Lewis Ranch because the huge sign says so. You're not going to see that in central Colorado Springs. What you will see though are just kind of some little areas that are well known and people kind of take pride in the fact that they live there. So I'm going to start with probably the most popular one in this area or most known about, and that's the Old North End. So Old North End is from Uinta Street here up to technically just south of Fillmore. And it's along Wasatch, Weber, Nevada, Tejon, Cascade, and Wood Avenue. So all of this area right here is the Old North End. Old North End is a registered historic district, so they do have a fancy sign out there that says Old North End. The homes there are, I think they're some of the most beautiful homes in all of the Colorado Springs area. These homes were largely the ones that were built when people first moved to Colorado Springs, but not just the ones that first moved here, the first wealthy people that moved to Colorado Springs. So along Wood Avenue over here, that's where you'll see a lot of people call it Mansion Row, Millionaires Row. A lot of the people that made money with gold mining or just, you know, industry associated with the rapid movement west in the 1800s built very large homes. We're talking like 14, 15,000 square foot homes on Wood Avenue. Cascade, you see it, beautiful, divided, huge tree-lined street. So there's a lot of beautiful homes on Cascade as well. So that area, Old North End, super popular. If you go to the east just a little bit, this is Patty Jewett Golf Course. So as you can kind of imagine probably, this area around it is called the Patty Jewett area. As you go down a little bit farther, there's other areas in here like along this little waterway here, like Shook's Run and Shook's Run North. Those are two pretty popular areas. Over here by Memorial Park, I kind of just call it Memorial Park area, but I believe the official name for the sub area is Lakeside. So you have Lakeside, and then kind of between downtown and then over where Memorial Park is, this area right here, it's just called East End Edition. So again, kind of points to when the city was being developed in the late 1800s. That was just, oh, this is Colorado Springs. Now we're going to add this addition to it, and it went a little bit farther east. So that's kind of this area right here. So those are kind of the major neighborhoods. Like I said, there's certainly other sub neighborhoods in there, but those are kind of the main ones that people will know about. You'll probably read about the most whenever you're doing your research. All of downtown is District 11 schools. As I mentioned a couple times, biggest one in the city, really the heart of Colorado Springs. So this certainly is all D11 schools. There's a number of schools in the downtown area. There's even a high school right in Lewis Palmer High School is right in downtown Colorado Springs. So for recreation, this is where the central area of Colorado Springs, I think, probably shines the most. We've already talked about all that stuff on the west side, how you got trails right outside your back door, which is true and awesome. The downtown Colorado Springs area offers that largely as well, because again, you can see the proximity to this downtown central area, to Highway 24, to Bear Creek Park, right up I-25 to Ute Valley Park. You've got Garden of the Gods, You've got Palmer Park right over here. So right outside of this area we're talking about. So it's kind of almost surrounded by these large parks, but then you also have parks within the central area. So you've got Acacia Park downtown. This is Monument Valley Park that goes right through here along the creek. We've mentioned Memorial Park and Prospect Lake. You've got, so all these little pocket parks is what I think makes the downtown area feel like you're never far away from someplace to go take a walk, someplace to go throw the Frisbee, but then you're super duper close to a lot of different options if you want to go for that longer run or if you want to go for that longer mountain bike ride, whatever it might be. But then you combine that with the revitalization that's occurred downtown Colorado Springs on Nevada, Tejon, Cascade, all this area right here. So when you combine the outdoor recreation opportunities with the downtown recreation, that's why I think it's pretty darn hard to beat. There's a lot of people that would say that Colorado Springs, recreation-wise, the downtown area is where it's at because you've got bars, restaurants, shops, you've got this vibrant feel, but you also have all these parks that are super close by to you, and you have these neighborhoods that have revitalized. So now you have nice looking neighborhoods as well that kind of all go with this. So it's kind of that that revitalization trend that we're seeing across the country in a lot of cities where those turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s homes are all being redone, and those downtown areas that largely people kind of just left for a while, people have went back to them now and people enjoy being downtown. I will say when I came to Colorado Springs in 2005, I didn't want to go downtown for anything. There was nothing down there. There was a couple bars that I really didn't want to go to. There weren't really any good restaurants. And we did have, I think, even a much, much, much worse homeless concern then than what we have now. So the homeless population, there was a lot of panhandling. It just really wasn't fun to go downtown. Night and day different now. Now it just feels like this vibrant, fun place to go. And a couple examples of that are this has been here for a while, but I'm going to highlight a couple things. So you have the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic training facility right here. This has been here for quite a while, but that's a cool place to go check out downtown. You also now have the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. This is, I won't say brand new, it's been there for a couple years now, but this is probably, like 5 years now maybe. So anyway, this is a super cool museum, definitely worth checking out. You've got the Colorado Springs Pioneers Museum. This is like right in the heart of that downtown area. And now across from the Olympic Museum, you have Widefield, which is where our local soccer team, the Switchbacks, play. They do concerts there. So this southern downtown area, south downtown, south of Colorado, kind of around in this area, used to be like honestly just really bad. It was a bunch of industrial warehouse stuff. It wasn't nice at all. But again, the revitalization now is going south. So now that they've built that Widener Field there, there's also some new luxury apartments that have went in there. And out to the east a little bit, still downtown, but to the east a little bit out here like Wasatch and kind of Pikes Peak. Out there, they've built some new luxury apartments as well. I mean, I'm talking like big luxury apartments, like where there's, pool on the second floor of the building. It's got a huge pool outdoor area, fake turf, big lawn area on it. So some really cool places downtown, and they're continuing to put a lot of money into the downtown area. So it's not just, it's mostly public funded. So it's not just, municipal funds, state funds. It's a lot of public developer funds that are going into the area. So recreation-wise, man, there's a ton of stuff to do downtown. And I think, honestly, it's only getting better. So local businesses, downtown Colorado Springs, I mean, there's a lot of them. It's kind of like old Colorado City. There's a lot of stuff down there. You're not going to find, you have some chain places like Einstein Brothers and East Coast Deli. There's some chain places, but for the most part, it's kind of one-off, independently owned and operated places. But there's one place I got to give a shout out to, and it's Louis Piano Bar. Louis Piano Bar is new to downtown as of this last fall, summer time frame. I think it's awesome. Colorado Springs has never really had anything like that before. So if you guys want some good, just Saturday evening entertainment, go check out Louis Piano Bar. I think it's pretty freaking sweet. And then, like I said, just walking down Tejon and Cascade, mainly Tejon Street, walking up and down it, there's just shop after shop and restaurant after restaurant. So a ton of locally owned places you can definitely go to support on, like I said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in downtown Colorado Springs. Let's talk about some housing stuff, because living in a very urban downtown area sometimes doesn't give you a lot of options. Not everybody wants to live in a condo or an apartment. So single family homes, yeah, there's definitely those available, this area that we've talked about. So you've got the old North End, and then you've got, like I said, a lot of apartments and condos right in the downtown, that really central downtown area. And then out to the east a little bit, it goes back into single family homes. So you definitely have options. So the median price point for this central area of Colorado Springs is $430,000. Now, what I can tell you is now this is a median, not an average, so it's not drastically skewed, but what does kind of bring that median down some is you have this area over here by Memorial Park that hasn't, revitalization typically starts in kind of a central area and works its way out. So that's happening from the downtown area. But once you get over in this area over here, kind of closer to Memorial Park, it really hasn't taken hold quite as much. Same thing as you get up here off of Union and Uinta. This actually is pretty darn nice now, but there's still some pockets where it's not spectacular. So those home prices are going to be a little bit lower. And it's going to kind of skew the numbers maybe just a little bit compared to other areas. So that's a good segue into highest and lowest sale price. So the highest sale price, I've been looking forward to talking about this one all day. This is a sweet property. So this is the Sharps Mansion. So this is one of those places I was talking about that's on like that Wood Avenue, Cascade Avenue area. It's for sale right now for $3.5 million. So this is a 15,000 square foot Old North End, turn of the century, late 1800s mansion estate. And it's been meticulously cared for. So when you look at this property, it looks like a new property, but it's over 100 years old. So I think it's one of the, not to sound cheesy, but I think it's one of the crown jewels of Colorado real estate, especially for the downtown area. So the fact that that one's for sale right now, I think is pretty awesome. Like I said, 3.5 million. That's kind of on the high side for our area as well. The minimum price, 175,000. So that was a condo over on Paseo. So that was kind of over in that far, I guess I'll call it kind of the far northeast portion of the central downtown area. And again, that's an older condo building. And that gives us an overall price per square foot of $277 per square foot. So one of the higher per square foot costs that we've seen across Colorado Springs. But again, a lot of that it's just driven by, we talked about it before, some of these older neighborhoods, homes weren't built as large, they were smaller, and they're desirable areas though, so that cost goes up, but the size of the home is a little bit smaller. So it kind of changes that price per square foot a little bit compared to some other areas. So $277 per square foot. And man, when you talk about housing type, downtown Colorado Springs is really, I think it's pretty cool because you do get that late 1800s, Old North End, just quintessential beautiful homes. And then you have all the way out where you go out towards Uinta, and now you're gonna have 50s and 60s built homes out here, a lot of 50s. I would say most of the central part we're talking about was largely filled in by the end of the 50s. So kind of late 1800s to 1950s is when most of central Colorado Springs was all built out. And that's what you see on the housing side as well. So downtown Colorado Springs, central area of Colorado Springs, what makes it special? I think honestly, it's the revitalization. Again, 20 years ago, when I came to Colorado Springs, it wasn't appealing. It wasn't an area that I wanted to buy in. It wasn't an area that I wanted to really consider. It didn't have the feel that it has now. But man, in the last 20, I would say largely in the last 5 to 10 years, they have done an amazing job with putting money into downtown Colorado Springs to make it feel nicer, to draw in new businesses, new commercial development. And what that's done then is it's made people be okay with spending a little bit more on their housing, knowing that they're going to remodel the house because they really want to be close to all that stuff downtown. And they don't mind being in a 100-year-old home, but they want it to be nice. They want to remodel that house. And that's kind of the process that we've seen for almost all of the central area, all the way up to Fillmore now, and it's starting to go across Fillmore even to the north a little bit, where these areas are all starting to revitalize. You're seeing it push to the east a little bit as well, kind of past Union, there's an area called Nob Hill, just south or just east of downtown. That area is starting to change a little bit. So that's the biggest thing that makes downtown in this central area special in my mind, is just the continued revitalization that we see. And I think we're going to continue to see that push out and just make all these areas close to downtown all that much better. All right, everybody, that is Colorado Springs in a very, very large nutshell. It was a ton of information. I hope it was valuable. We tried to cover all the areas of Colorado Springs and the topics that we get the most questions about. So hopefully it was valuable. If you have any questions at all, as always, reach out, call, text, email. We're the ones that actually answer the phone. And if you're coming to Colorado Springs, definitely hit us up. We'd love to help you out whenever you guys head this way.